All right, let's get to the news, though. President Trump holds a press briefing on the aviation disaster. We're obviously going to be talking about that, and people are not very happy about it. For those of you who don't know what happened, last night, or is it night? I don't know. It was during the night, right? A jet with 60 passengers and 4 crew members collided with an Army helicopter, a Black Hawk, from what I understand, while approaching the Ronald Reagan National Airport near Washington, D.C., sending the 2 aircraft plummeting into the Potomac River and killing everyone on board. It's actually a massive tragedy considering that the jet with the 60 passengers was basically about to land. The Army helicopter flew into the plane from the videos that I've seen, and it's pretty gruesome. I'm going to show you this right now from the New York Times. You can see it right here. The moment that the 2 aircraft collided. Here, it's going to loop back again. Look at that. You can barely see the helicopter. It seems like the helicopter did not have the proper designation for flying, where you're just like constantly supposed to blast out to air traffic control that you're flying. The helicopter was warned about the plane, but they were looking at the wrong plane at the time. Air clearance, yeah. ADSB, thank you. A lot of aviation heads in the chat. I don't know the exact details. I can't remember the exact names. Anyway, the collision occurred at around 9 p.m. Wednesday in one of the world's most tightly controlled airspaces. This is Washington, D.C. This is the capital of the United States of America. There are flights happening all the time, in and out, and also there are a lot of helicopters flying around. It was just over 3 miles south of the White House and the U.S. Capitol. A search and rescue effort launched overnight and turned into a recovery operation by mid-Thursday morning, unfortunately. There were some details. Number 1, the collision involved a regional jet out of Wichita, Kansas, that was preparing to land, and a military helicopter that was doing a training exercise, according to the Federal Aviation Administration. A few minutes before the jet was to land, air traffic controllers asked American Airlines Flight 5342 if it could do so on a shorter runway, and the pilots agreed. Controllers cleared the jet to land, and flight tracking sites showed the plane adjust its approach to the new runway. Less than 30 seconds before the collision, an air traffic controller asked the helicopter if it had the arriving plane in sight. The controller made another radio call to the helicopter moments later. Pat 25 passed behind the CRJ, apparently telling the copter to wait for the Bombardier CRJ 701 twin jet engine to pass. There was no reply, and the aircraft collided seconds later. The plane's radio transponder stopped transmitting about 2,400 feet short of the runway, roughly over the middle of the Potomac. The body of the plane was found upside down in 3 sections in waist-deep water, officials said. The helicopter's wreckage was also found in the river. NTSB officials said they were working to recover the data recording equipment from both aircraft. Now, there are a lot of issues here, and there are a lot of systemic factors in play. TMZ actually went and got the air traffic control audio, which is kind of crazy to think about. Crazy that it's TMZ that actually acquired the audio. But here it is.
I don't know if you caught earlier what happened, but there was a collision on the approach to 33. 6342. Approach to 342. That's a Wilsonbury tank to turn for runway 33, clear to land.
Did you see that?
Oh, that's public and AP got it first for what it's worth? Oh, okay.
American 3130, go around, turn left and 250, climb maintain 3000. Blackjack 3, can you return to base? Blackjack 3, proceed direct.
Yeah, sorry for the spam, but I'm an amateur pilot. No media anywhere is stating that the U.S. military just killed 60 or so people, and everyone is focusing on the FAA staffing when the 3 people on the heli should have seen the shit out of the plane. Yeah, no, this is entirely. There are still systemic factors at play. I think the FAA firings or the FAA downsizing is a major problem here. I think that plays a role for sure. But yeah, it's entirely the military's fault here for sure. They did it on purpose. I suspect that this is going to draw a lot of conspiratorial minded people. The question we must ask ourselves and everyone else is, why would the American military assassinate 60 American citizens in the most public spectacle you have seen? What is the purpose? I cannot wait for the actual people that were on the flight so that people can continue doing more conspiracy theories saying that like this accountant that was on the plane was actually investigating Jeffrey Epstein or something, and that's the reason why they did that. When in fact, here is CNN revealing one air traffic controller was working 2 different tower positions at the time of the mid-air collision near Washington, D.C., an air traffic control source tells CNN. But before we do that, before we get to all the additional details, now that I've given you what we know so far, before we investigate the crash in and of itself, let's hear what Donald Trump had to say, because he held a press briefing on the aviation disaster. I haven't seen this yet, but let me suspect something. I'm going to be speculating on something that took place already. I'm assuming that DEI will be mentioned. Let's take a look.
I'd like to request a moment of silence for the victims and their families, please. Thank you very much. I speak to you this morning.
Isn't it awesome that there's just something that you can always blame when your decisions, like when your administrative decisions could directly lead to these issues? You can always turn around and just be like, nah, it's the fact that black people may or may not have been working the job. Great stuff, man. It's always a fantastic, super easy way to deflect the blame. I was a CH-47 crew chief. The helicopter could not have taken down the plane on purpose. They could have been in the wrong place and the plane would hit them if the ATC didn't catch them and correct in time. Helicopters are very slow compared to airliners. Yeah, I don't know why people think that the helicopter literally directly collided with the plane deliberately. It's insane. I don't think people understand how fast planes are and how slow helicopters are in comparison. And they just think it's like Grand Theft Auto 5, maybe. It's because the video looked like it was flying straight to it. Yeah, from your perspective, it looks like the helicopter is flying straight into the plane. That's physically not possible unless a plane has been parked. A helicopter, like a plane that is, even when a plane is landing, they're still faster than a helicopter. Even when the plane is approaching the runway, is still going like, 150, 140, 120, 100 miles. Like, have you never seen a plane land? Like, think about how fast it is when it touches the ground, even when it touches the runway. Think about how fast that plane is. And that is after the plane has already pumped the brakes, per se.
But we'll find out how this disaster occurred and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job when that happened. It's a rough one. We'll be working tirelessly. He's a great gentleman. The whole group these are great people, and they are working tirelessly to figure out exactly what happened. We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA.
Trump signs an order blaming Biden and DEI for flight dangers. No. This can't be real. Like, I mean, this is, I'm sure this is real. Of course it's real. That's very Trump. But like, there's no way people actually believe this, right? Like I think stuff like this is going to lead to diminished results. Right? Because you can't constantly say, this is a consequence of woke. This is a consequence of DEI. This is a consequence of woke DEI over and over again. And then expect people to go, yeah, that's right. That is probably what it is. Like, there's no, okay, I'm calling it now. I think they're exhausting it too much. They're hitting the woke. You have no idea what's coming, Unc. No, I think the average person is going to be like, all right, dude, come on. I think that you can only exhaust that for so long. People inevitably experience fatigue. That's what it is. I think looking at look, you want to know why I think this? Because notice how he started this conversation. He started this by, one, reading a piece of paper instead of freestyling. That implies the severity of the tragedy. Number two, in the piece of paper that he's reading, he said things along the lines of, today we are united as one nation. That also implies the severity of the tragedy. Donald Trump is an insane person who normally doesn't care about anything other than himself. So much so that he would have gotten in here and just basically started freestyling. The fact that he's even trying to read the paper and stick to script implies the severity of the situation. So when you have something like this, when you have an accident like this happen, that is a truly great tragedy, and you immediately hit the DEI button Other people are going to look at this and go, is it though? Come on, man. You say that about everything. And this is just the first instance. I'm saying this is the first instance. Oh, just you wait. You haven't played in long enough. He's going to start cooking. No, I know. Guys, I know. He is going to start cooking. Of course he's going to start cooking. It's Donald Trump. He's a narcissistic asshole. Of course he's going to start chirping about a bunch of different things. I already told you I didn't watch this yet, and I knew he was going to blame DEI. But my point is, the people's reception to crisis like this is inevitably going to lead to diminished results for the DEI vein that they keep tapping into. That's all I'm saying. And it's not necessarily about like the faith I place on the people that vote for this guy. I just think that narratives like these are effective if you use them briefly. If you constantly say it over and over again, people get bored of it.
Faye Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that...
Like, I'll give you a direct example, okay? Egg prices are supposed to go down. They don't go down. They get more expensive, right? Let's say egg prices get more expensive. You can't just keep saying it's DEI. At a certain point, people are going to be like, but you're the fucking president. Do you understand what I mean? Some people will turn around and say, oh, well, egg prices aren't going down because it's like has nothing to do with the president whatsoever. I just realized that, even though I didn't realize it under the Biden administration. But like people will still experience the harm and will go, okay, well, my president's not doing anything. Do you see what I'm saying? You can blame DEI over and over and over again, and it'll be effective for many people. It'll be effective for a lot of people. I'm sure Asmongold's community is like, hell yeah, even though it was a straight white airplane pilot, straight white helicopter pilot, straight white air traffic controller, straight white FAA administrator fired by straight white president and straight white billionaires or whatever. Ultimately, it's actually the fault of woke, right? Like that. Some people in Asmongold's community probably fucking eat this up. My point is, some people. I don't even think all people in Asmongold's community will eat this up. Do you see what I'm saying? Because like it's too much. It's too much. Like there's not a single like black or brown person involved in it, which most people don't give a shit about, right? But also outside of that, it's like, come on, dude, you literally say this about everything. At a certain point, even people who are believers committed to this cause are going to be like, it's like, what are we doing here? Oh, 9/11 is a DEI situation. You know what I mean? It's like looking at 9/11 and being like, this only happened because of DEI. Like, you're ridiculous at that point. Do you see what I mean? The JFK assassination only occurred because of DEI. It's like, no, there are certain things that transcend beyond that, and people want answers. And when you slam the DEI piece onto it, when you hammer the DEI button over and over and over again, people are going to be like, okay, well, I'm with you, brother. I think that, we got to deport these migrants. And I don't think that I want a black pilot. I don't know, but like, maybe this wasn't DEI, Now, my expectation isn't that they will see that and then start engaging in critical thinking overnight and be like, maybe what else has Donald Trump actually misplaced the blame on DEI on? Like, they're not going to do that, but it's a starting point.
And my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be.
Yo, this is okay. That's crazy. Yo, this is straight up. Yo, this is actually like, remember, the Nazis also hated the disabled too. Like, that's crazy. They actually unironically are just like, yo, if you have any disability whatsoever, fuck you. Like, what? That's crazy. Yo, what is happening? Also, I feel like Donald Trump is kind of disabled himself. You know what I mean? Like, what's he talking about? But to be fair, I guess Hitler didn't also subscribe to the Ubermensch in the way that he looked either. And Ben Shapiro is not exactly a beacon of masculinity. These guys don't really care about that. These guys don't even care about being a part of the in-group. They just believe that if they say the right things, they'll be a part of the in-group.
Air traffic controllers, I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program.
The ATC tower for this incident reportedly had 19 to the 30 staff say they needed for safe operation. That's the case for like ATC nationwide. Oh, I hate this. Dude, our endless profit seeking and endless cost cutting initiatives are unironically making, it's making air travel less safe. It will ruin commerce. It will have major impacts. This is a problem that Ronald Reagan, I think, played a formative role in creating, and no president has really fixed it.
Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those.
I represent LaGuardia Airport as well as workers for JFK. Trump gutted the Aviation Safety Committee last week. Air traffic controllers, already understaffed, got Trump's buyout this week with a 1-week ultimatum to decide. It's not DEI, it's him. And Elon, too. Elon forcing FAA chief to resign because FAA fined SpaceX didn't help either. Yeah, dude, this is just straightforward bad management. And in times like this, unfortunately, when it's far too late to recognize, some people will find out exactly what the government does, right? Some people will, albeit when it's far too late, find out that these sorts of issues, these sorts of moves, these jobs that are otherwise invisible are actually very important in maintaining safety. When you have the proper tools at the FAA, when you have air traffic control working, it's invisible. So you don't even think about it. You only think about it. You only think about the ATC being understaffed when it no longer is invisible. There are reports on this stuff that the air traffic control in the United States of America has significant understaffing. It is the same principle at virtually every job site at this point. Virtually every industry, every sector demands more labor participation, higher percentages, and higher numbers in the workforce. And yet our cost cutting demands that people operate more efficiently. And that efficiency is going to lead to a lot of issues. That efficiency is going to cause problems, okay? Efficiency at the hospital implies that your emergency room nurse is having to take care of more than 5 patients, which is supposed to be the norm. 4 patients is supposed to be the max, right? Efficiency implies your nurse is now taking care of 10 patients, 20 patients, and you cannot give proper medical care to 20 people when on your 12-hour shift, the maximum amount of people that you're supposed to be taking care of is 4 people. But hey, guess what? That's a good cost-cutting initiative. It's better for the bottom line of the hospital, but it's actually lower quality care overall. It's also less safe overall. You don't want your grandparents or your loved ones to be taking care of someone who unfortunately does not have the proper bandwidth, the proper time, the space to take care of them, right? That is a great example of understaffing leading to worse results and less safety overall. It's not like the nurses are worse. It's just they're taking on so much more. And the same goes for the ATC. It's not like the ATC itself is doing a worse job because they're just like more black or something. It's because there are more people that must be hired for these jobs, but that costs money and we don't want to do that.
And I assume maybe this is the reason. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit. The Department of Transportation, his government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity. So I had to say that it's terrible. Then it's a group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration just prior to my getting there. And we took care of African Americans, Hispanic Americans. We took care of everybody at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It's one of the reasons I won. But they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent.
President Trump just not asked if he'd visit the crash site. Response, what's the site? The water? You want me to go swimming? He's got such a way with words, dude.
Memorandum titled Immediate Assessment of Aviation Safety. In light of the damage done to aviation safety by the Biden administration's DEI and woke policies, what this presidential memorandum orders is for your Secretary of Transportation and FAA administrator, in this case, acting FAA administrator, to basically ensure that we are actively undoing all of that damage, that we are assessing how much damage was done, and that we're ensuring that people hired within the FAA, in keeping with your memorandum of January 21st, are only the most outstanding, capable people for the jobs that they're being hired into.
In other words, competence.
Yes, sir. Elevating competence over everything.
Dude, everything. 9/11 happens in the United States of America. Our leaders immediately use that as an opportunity to go to war with like all these countries in the Middle East, resource-rich nations that we want to invade. Tragedy happens under the Trump administration, and they're like, well, this actually is because we didn't melt the disabled. Far too many black people that have been hired for these positions. Like, it's crazy. Not to say that like one is better than the other, okay? Make no mistake. Moments of crisis create moments of opportunity for all administrations. It's just crazy that like the scope has narrowed in spectacular fashion. Interesting stuff.
Kennedy Center tape. We had a tape up on the Kennedy Center. That seems to be the primary. That's why I'm sure we'll see other tapes, because it's such an area where there are a lot of cameras looking up into the air, into space. So we'll probably see many other shots of it before too much time goes by. But we had a situation where you had a helicopter that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters. You can stop a helicopter very quickly. It had the ability to go up or down.
I just don't see what the fuck DI has to do with the ATC being understaffed. Well, it's because you're actually looking at a real problem that exists in the ATC. Also, accidents still happen regardless if the ATC was properly staffed, okay? You can never have too many people working on safety measures, and you can never actually, especially in air travel, you can never have too many redundancies. It's not a thing. Like, most of these planes have multiple fail safes. When something experiences a point of failure, there is like numerous other systems in place that you can utilize, right? But the major problem is safety measures yield positive results, not immediately, but they yield the positive results that are invisible, and those benefits can only be seen in the long term, okay? Because instability and unsafety, like instability and a lack of safety, will cause people to lose confidence in flying in a fucking tin can. And when that happens, the entirety of the airline industry is cooked. But if we are so hyper-focused on short-term profit over long-term stability, safety is inherently antagonistic to those goals. Safety measures require more people to be hired. Safety measures require the process of procurement to be longer. Safety measures require the process, everything to be slower, right? And that is antagonistic to supercharged profits. And the more we care about profits, the more we emphasize the importance of profit margins improving, the less we emphasize the importance of safety.
Routine annual retraining of night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission. The military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. And I think the president is right. There was some sort of an elevation issue that we have immediately begun investigating at the DOD and Army level. Army CID is on the ground investigating. Top-tier aviation assets inside the DOD are investigating, sir, to get to the bottom of it so that it does not happen again, because it's absolutely unacceptable. But I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary and you, Mr. President, said, because it pertains to the DOD as well. We will have the best and brightest in every position possible. As you said in your inaugural, it is colorblind and merit-based. The best leaders possible, whether it's flying Blackhawks and flying airplanes, leading platoons, or in government. The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government. So thank you for your leadership and courage on that, sir, and we'll stand by you on it. Thank you very much.
Something that is often talked about, obviously, but it bears repeating in this process that I find particularly strange is the reality that someone like Pete Hegseth talking about DEI standards and unqualified people being hired for positions within the government is so insane. It's like, bro, do you hear yourself? Like, are you okay? Like, what are you then? Like, what do you mean? Oh, we need superior hiring practices, I say, as I am a guy who straight up unqualified for the position. Like, the Trump administration across the board has hired some of the least competent people I have seen for key positions. Like, what the do you mean? It makes no sense to me. I mean, it does make sense, obviously, because they have one quality that clearly transcends all others in terms of importance, which is that they are telegenic and white. How are you getting home, King? I mean, I don't know. It's going to be difficult. Getting more difficult by the day.